Let's start diving into a little more detail. I did say in my introduction video to ProTechComm that I would be talking in more depth about genres specific to the various business writing contexts. But I'll take a moment because I got feedback that apparently I don't smile enough. My voice is smiley, but just so that people kind of have that fix. Cool, I smiled. Sorry. I don't know, but let's actually learn something instead of me just being goofy for randomness sake. So we do want to talk about common genres specific to technical writing, and we'll first break them into these four categories, and then we'll dig into those in a little more depth and name some of those. Now, just as a reminder, I do have a general video about genre, which defines it as any type or form of communication with socially agreed upon norms or conventions. And I do mention in that video that's kind of more of a rhetorical approach and just kind of blanket approach to genre. I do mention that those norms that people have about writing or communication, sometimes they're explicit. Like, people have laid out style guides, and business writing and technical writing is really good about that, having style guides and standard ways that companies like to have their documents formatted, and sometimes they're not as explicit. And so one of the challenges with genre is that we may go into a new environment and be used to people telling us exactly what they're looking for. And I see this a lot more with students. They'll walk into a class and I'll have a project that's a little more open-ended, that's designed to help them take more initiative and enact more agency about their writing, kind of make the choices about how to structure and what to think about and what to focus on and how to frame it themselves. And I intentionally have that more open-ended. And they kind of, sometimes students can be frustrated or confused more and uncomfortable with that kind of open-endedness. In business environments, can be more of a challenge because it may be that there is a specific way that the business likes doing things, but no one's taken the time to codify that and put it into a specific style manual. That's one of the first things that good technical writers, technical communicators will do when they're on the job, is first, what existing documents are around that are supposed to standardize the way we write. And if there aren't any, let me take the time to do that first so that I am clear about the expectations that my bosses and my company want. All right, so before we get into genres, we have to think about that. Genres are social norms for writing, for communication. And that may be structural, that may be type of language, that may be in the way we cite sources or use visuals. There's all of the 8 aspects of writing may come into play for how we define a genre. It's why I call it the unicorn of writing. All right. That was a lot more than I meant to, but hopefully that gives you kind of a first step if you're entering into a new situation as a technical writer. Ask that question of your boss. Are there any style guides that set company policy or organization policy about communication? What can you tell me about those expected norms? And really push, ask the questions, be probing. Don't just assume that people will tell you, because that's one of the big, you want to be proactive about this, so to avoid mistakes 3 months down when people actually start looking at your writing, depending on how the time scale works. You've been creating all these things and suddenly someone higher up sees that you've been creating all these documents and the whole time you didn't know that they had an expectation. It's one of the hardest parts about being a technical writer, is trying to draw out from other people. It's not the producing of text. It's making sure you produce the text in the way that specific organization wants. So according to those social norms. Hence, genre. But let's talk about some general categories here, because I may have gotten slightly off topic. It happens. So there are 4 major kind of categories for genres. We've got formal communication. We've got business genres, and then we've got customer-facing communication that's closer to marketing, and employee-facing communication that's closer to manuals and things like that. And so let's jump into that. So first, formal communication. So these are these are within the specific business environment. I'm putting on my business hat, and I'm officially writing a memo. And these may not be some of these aren't just for technical writers who have that as an official position. Like, these are the kind of professional, formal communications that anyone in a company may be required to do. So official professional memos based on my official role as a member of this community, as a member of this business, as part of this team. There are specific ways that memos are generally short, to the point, have very specific information that they're trying to deliver, just to keep people informed, or give them a very specific piece of information. Emails are that seems pretty standard, but keep in mind that in emails you usually you often will use what's called block paragraphing format, and that's where you don't indent the paragraphs, but you create the spaces between. Often emails as professional documents do need to look professional, which means you do have a general greeting, and it may be to whom it may concern. Some people will use dear blah blah blah, but sometimes that's also a little more personal, and so if you don't know the person, try and look up other ways of beginning a business letter. There are a variety, but there should be a clear, like, I know who I'm addressing. I'm acknowledging them as a person. I'm getting it. I'm keeping it short and sweet, but making sure my email gives enough of what people need to move forward. And that means that my email shouldn't be just one sentence. My email shouldn't be 5 paragraphs. There are other genres, so you want to use the email as as a formal communication. If there are multiple paragraphs necessary, make sure that it's not overwhelming. Reddit's TLDR, too long, didn't read. But if I can say, here's a file that has the information you need if you're dealing with this, then I attach that, or go here if you're trying to. So make sure you're being aware. You don't want to put, for instance, some of these other genres, you don't want to put an entire report into an email. You want to attach the report and link out, basically, and reference why that report might matter. Those kind of things. You don't want to you may not want to put the whole letter or a whole performance review in an email, but you may have a more substantial document that's separate from the email, and you'll do some quick highlights or something like that and point out. PSAs, or public service announcements, are really common. Those are more external. So again, there's this to the customer or to the public side of things versus to the private side of things, and we'll talk in more detail in a moment about those. But PSAs, or public service announcements, are specific types of communication that businesses will put out when something good or bad happens, or to let people know that a program's starting, and that gets sent out. Often PSAs go out to news organizations. I'm more familiar with it when you're talking about like nonprofits trying to send out information. For instance, like a theater saying, we're going to be having a performance of a musical come in these dates, and they'll send that out to a newspaper or news media publishers of one kind or another, and that will give them kind of the snippet, the basic information they need, usually in less than a page, that allows them to kind of have some basic information to send out and to their readership or audience. Okay. So performance reviews are more specific, and performance reviews are something that every employee at a company level should be trying to do well. It's one of the reasons why in most of my classes I will emphasize the importance of peer review and doing that well, and I've got a couple other videos on using the RICE method, on making sure you start from a place of empathy, that kind of thing. But performance reviews are one of the most common places where rhetorical strategies matter in a business realm, particularly because they do have a highly relational aspect to them. And so you can't just go out and act like you're some random person in the backwoods of the internet, trolling people in a performance review. You're trying to do team building, and you have to think about, how do I praise what people are doing well and help them think toward growth so that they don't get beat down. It's a very human document that it unfortunately also gets embedded in a very formal way, and affects people in very personal ways when it comes to their finances and things. So you want to make sure you do those very well. All right. So there are a variety of letter genres, and I can't go into all of them, but there are good, bad news letters. Oh no, something happened with the owner of the company, and now he's in the news media. Just wanted to prepare you all. Inquiries, complaints, adjustments, sales letters. There's a variety of these. As you need them, you can look them up, but those are some that might show up. All right. I'm going to stop the video here. I'm going to create a new video for the next sequence, but hopefully we'll get into a rhythm here.